everyone was kind of blown away, including myself. Like I didn't really know what was happening. Like when that first day it came out and it was that morning it was sold out on Amazon, it was like, what? Like it was just, it didn't compute. And like, and the fact that like it sold out in the first week means that my publisher did not they did not order enough copies, which means they did not think it would sell that many copies. And so it's just like, it just felt like it was out of our hands. Like nobody had expected it to hit the way it hit.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Off the Shelf. Today's guest grew up on a grape farm. She then dropped out of college and then she worked as a baker, a potter, and a bookseller. Kristen Ciccarelli is now the #1 New York Times bestselling author of a book that wasn't supposed to be big until it was. That book is Heartless Hunter, a god-tier romantasy book for me that I have not stopped thinking about since the day that I read it. And today we are diving into everything about the book. Kristen, welcome to Off the Shelf.
Thank you. It is a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for coming in. Now, before we get into things, I recently found this out and I would love for you to share a little bit more insight into how you meeting your husband correlates with a scene in Rebel Witch. Because I'm so intrigued.
How did you find out about this?
I just did a little bit of a deep dive and I would just love a little bit more.
Yes. Okay. So there is a certain train hopping scene in Rebel Witch that it was probably like my most anticipated scene. Like I was like basically writing the book to get to that scene. I was so excited to write it. And basically for me, train hopping has always been like, it's always had this kind of romantic sheen to it. And the reason for that is because when my husband and I started dating, he was actually like hopping trains across the country, which I do not recommend. It is very dangerous and it is very illegal, so don't do it. But we were young and stupid. Well, he was anyway. And I guess I was for like falling in love with him. But yeah, so basically I was excited to write that scene because for that reason, but also I had sort of an in-house like but in-house expert, I guess, on train hopping. So he could kind of read through it and tell me that like, no, a train actually sounds like this, or like, this is what it feels like when you're jumping onto it and stuff like that. So,
which again, we are not endorsing, but it does make an incredible scene in fiction. I love that. Now, I want to go back to the beginning to what I imagine was like your early writing days. How did you end up with your dad's old laptop, and like what kind of stories were you writing at that point?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you've really done a deep dive. Okay. So, my dad was like this sort of like big, like he was like the plant manager for these plants, which are like they're like for like minerals and stuff, so like breaking down minerals and processing them and stuff. And he had this, I can't even remember, I think it was a Dell, I can't even remember what it was, but it was like this big gray box of a laptop. And this was like back when nobody had laptops. And it was just his work laptop that he didn't need anymore. And he gave it to me. I'm not even sure why. And I just started writing stories on it. And the stories I wrote, I mean, when I was growing up, we didn't have, the internet was a thing, but we didn't have it in our house. And so there was probably fan fiction going on, but I wasn't exposed to it. I didn't know what it was, but I was pretty much writing, when I think back, like the stuff I was writing was pretty much like Lord of the Rings fan fiction, like lots of elves, lots of dwarves, lots of just sort of like very overflowery language in like a very sort of Tolkien-esque fantasy world. And eventually it branched out but like that was probably what I was initially writing when I was early teen, maybe even before early, like 12, 13. Yeah.
Now, I also understand that you would like share stories with your classmates when you were in school during school projects. Yes. Were those stories like also kind of into elves or
totally.
Other things?
Well, like elves, werewolves. I remember there was a werewolf story. And yeah, it was kind of like this, I would tell it to them. And I would like, the goal was to like keep them hooked, like to keep them interested. So I was always like upping the ante, like always like the stakes were always rising and rising and rising. And so yeah, I guess that was like maybe training ground for becoming a novelist.
Now, did you think at that point you were like, I could be an author, or did you have another career in mind?
No, so again, like this was kind of, I mean, the internet was around, but it was different. Like we didn't have smartphones, we didn't have social media. And so my concept of like an author was like maybe a black and white picture at the end of the book and maybe a paragraph about that author. And so for me, it was like, it didn't occur to me that authors were even necessarily real people. And like they were more like, I don't know, more like unicorns. You couldn't really grow up to be one. Like that was not in my head. It was not like the way you could grow up to be a teacher or a firefighter. And so it was never, I loved writing. It was what I did all the time. But I never thought I could do it as a career. It was only when I was in my early 20s and all of a sudden like authors were more accessible and you could kind of reach out and talk to them on DM or whatever. You could read their blogs that I kind of realized. It's like, oh, this person is real. I think it was, my first one was Kristen Ciccarelli. I had read Graceling and I had just Googled her after. I love Graceling.
I like that book.
I had Googled her and I had found her blog and I was just like compulsively reading her blog. And it was like it's not like she was writing about like super fascinating things. She was just writing about her very normal life. And I realized then it was like, oh, like something kind of clicked. It's like, oh, authors are real people. I'm a real person. Maybe I could be an author.
Yeah.
So
Now, you've also mentioned that like growing up, you didn't have a lot of books in your house. Has that changed now? Do you have a lot of books in your house?
Yes. Well, some people would say you can't have too many books, but way too many books. Yes. When I was growing up, I could pretty much count on when I was my daughter's age, my daughter's 5, I could count on pretty much one hand, like the books that were mine. And that is not the case for her. She has like 10 times that, probably more. So yeah, we have books everywhere all over our house.
Wow. What are some of your favorite books? Favorite fantasy or anything? Like, what do you love?
What do I love? What are my favorite books? So, I mean, I read a lot of picture books because I have children, small children. But probably my favorite book of all time is The Forgotten Beasts of Eld, which is an older book. It was written, I think, in 1975. And I think it won the Nebula for that year. And it's basically, it's a really easy read. It's not very long. And it's by Patricia McKillip. And it's about this woman. She's a wizard. She lives at the top of this hill and she's very sort of like cold. She's never really had anyone, like she doesn't really know what love is, because she's never really experienced it. And all of a sudden one night this soldier brings her this tiny baby and he's like, you have to take it. You're his only living relative. I have to go back and fight this war. And so she takes it and she's like, okay, it can join my collection of animals. She has all these like magical animals. But then she realizes that it's different and she has to actually love this thing. And then she learns to love this thing, this little baby that grows up into a boy. And it's in the loving of the thing that she learns what it's like to like be wounded, not by the boy, but like it's just like he kind of draws her into the more human world where she is hurt and she experiences fear and like someone trying to kind of overpower her, which has never happened to her before. And so she kind of because of these things, she kind of descends to this like dark place where she's like, no, like she learns how to hate and she learns how to want revenge and like all of these things. And it's just this like, it's like, I just find it this really profound exploration of like human nature and like what it means to be like a powerful and a woman. There's just like all of these things there. And I think most of all though, every time I read it, like I reread it, probably every 7 years or so. I've read it a lot of times and every time I read it, I learn something else about myself or like, and it's like, oh, it's never the same book. It's like, and I've always been able to read it and it's always like a new book every time. And I just feel like that's a really magical quality in a book. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That's how I would put it. It's pretty magical.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Now, going back 10 years, 2016, you were a full-time ceramic artist. Would that version of yourself recognize your life now?
Yes and no. I think like that version of myself wanted to be like, was a writer and so badly wanted not just to write stories, but to have them sort of out in the world. And that's absolutely what I'm doing now. So in that sense, I think she would recognize me. In another sense, and like this is because of the books, like there are things that I I never really imagined could ever happen. So like moving to Newfoundland, that was something I could do because I didn't have to be anywhere. I could just write my books from wherever. And so my husband and I moved there, and like that was something I always wanted to do but never thought I could do. And then even like something like owning a house it just wasn't I didn't think it was a possibility for me personally, but like because of my books and because of readers buying my books, I've been able to like have a house. And so like things like that, yes and no, I guess my answer is she would recognize me and she wouldn't.
What changed after you sold your first book?
Well, we moved to Newfoundland. That was a big move into this like little falling apart house on the ocean. Literally, we walked into this house and we had been looking for a while. And as soon as we walked into the house, there were like 3 holes in the roof, and there were buckets, and there was water dripping into the buckets. And like I walked in, and we'd seen probably 20 other houses at this point, maybe not quite that many. And as soon as I walked in, I was like, this is the one. It was like,
wait, what was it about it? Taking away the holes in the roof and the buckets.
It's like, it's hard to describe. It's just like, if you were to like go to this particular spot in Newfoundland, it was like on the northern peninsula. It's very close to Alonzo Meadows, which is where the Vikings landed and set up their settlements. It's just like, it's like magical. Like there's something about the earth there. Like, it's like no other place I've ever been. And this particular house was like the furthest point out in this cove. And it looked out onto the ocean, and there was like headland on this side and headland on that side. And it was just I just totally fell in love with it. I'm like tearing up now. Yeah. So anyways, what the answer?
No,
what
that's
that
okay.
Answer
that
was.
answers it. What about the house? And I mean, I can just tell in the way that you're speaking about it that it had a lot of meaning. It's okay. Sorry. You're good. It's okay.
I mean, that was probably the biggest one is my husband and I kind of went on this big adventure in Newfoundland. Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about writing sheds? Because did they start in Newfoundland?
I guess technically, yes. So writing sheds. At this particular house, we lived in a place called Hay Cove, and there was there's a lot of sheds all over Newfoundland because it's very there is like a big fishing industry, and the sheds are mostly to do with fishing, so like processing sheds and where you store all of your equipment and stuff like that. So we had this really old dilapidated shed on our property, and it was just like the most picturesque thing. Like it was like falling apart, and it was like the perfect picture, and I was like, I don't want it to fall into the ground. And so my husband restored it basically, and then I basically took it over and did all my writing in there. And then when we moved, we had our daughter, and we wanted to be closer to family. So we moved back home to Niagara. And then we had this like tiny little garden shed in our backyard, also falling apart, also just like not very nice looking at all. And so he did the same thing. He renovated it, and I put a little hammock in there and he did. And a little, I didn't do any of it. I just told him what to do. A wood stove and like all of these things that I really liked, and a desk, obviously. And then now we've moved again into this house by the woods where it's like the same postal code where I grew up. So it's like,
wow.
And it's the same creek that runs through the backyard as the one that ran behind my grandparents' house. And there's a shed on this property, and he's actually renovating it now. So he's turning that one into a writing shed for me. We just like leave writing sheds behind wherever we go.
That would be such like a cool selling point of a house though, to have like such a unique writing space with a wood stove and everything like that.
It was super cozy.
I love that. How much of your writing would you say happens in the writing shed, and then compared to like other places?
That's a good question. Maybe 50%. So a lot of it is like so for example, these days my baby gets up at like 5 a.m. And so we've got about 2 hours before everyone else gets up, and she's really in the stage now where she just wants to kind of explore. And so I can sit there and drink my coffee and work, but I can't take her out to the shed. So, I mean, I guess I could, but I don't. So a lot of my writing will happen in the mornings on the couch with her, or like late at night. My other daughter, she's currently sleeping in our room for some reasons, and so while she's trying to get to sleep, I will sit in the bed and I'll work in the bed. So it does kind of happen in between, but having like an actual space for the writing is just helpful, like mentally, to have like, this is important. This is a space for this particular thing. Yeah.
Now, to like set the scene for us in this writing shed, do you have a beverage? Is there music going? Is it just like the crackling of the fireplace? Can you set the scene for us?
Yes. There's definitely coffee. There's always coffee. And then some water too, to stay hydrated, but lots of coffee. And then usually, I mean, if it's winter or if it's autumn or cold, then the fire's usually going. And these days, it depends. Like, either I need to have no music or I need to have a particular music playlist that I've kind of curated for the book that I'm working on. It can't be anything else. Anything else is like distracting. So, yeah.
Interesting. Now, apart from like the setting of where you write, how has your writing process changed from like that first book to now? Because I think for a little bit you were rewriting full books. Is that something that still happens?
Well, I mean, never say never. Hopefully not. Knock on wood. But I've been doing this long enough now, and I think having kids has really helped too, because it's like all of a sudden you have kids and you're like, where did my time go? I have no time. And you have to kind of like, you be really strategic about your time, and so I can't afford to write and rewrite and then rewrite entire books. So back when I was like, when my first book came out, The Last Samsara, it's about a dragon slayer princess, I guess. And I was very much a pantser, so I was just really exploring and writing without necessarily knowing where I was going. I kind of had ideas, vague ideas, but not specific. And that kind of writing led me to a lot of rewriting. And actually Edgewood, which is now A Dark Forgetting, also was a pantsed book. And that went through various, very different incarnations. And it was only after I wrote those two books that I really started outlining and doing a lot of that groundwork up front. So right now my process is like kind of extensive right at the beginning. So I need to know like a character, usually a couple characters. Like, so for Heartless Hunter, it was Rune and Gideon and Alex and even Verity. Okay. And I needed to know right away, like, what's their history? What's their wound? What is it that they want? What is it that they're trying? Like, how are they trying to heal their wounds? That's never going to work. Like, all of these, I have all of these things I need to know about a character before I even can start plotting the book. And then I need to know where that character is at the end of the story, so that I can start them at the beginning. And then so basically it's like the whole plot is getting them from A to B, getting them from the end, well, the beginning to the end. And only when I have every single scene plotted, do I start drafting. And so it's a lot, it's like months and months and months and months of work before I ever start actually writing chapter 1 or whatever. And that just allows me to like not have to rewrite entire books. So, yeah.
Okay, I'm fascinated because we're going to jump into Heartless Hunter now. And I want to come back to the outlining process because now I have so many questions. Okay. What was the first spark for Heartless Hunter? How did it first begin?
So the first spark for Heartless Hunter was probably my like low-key obsession with a Scarlet Pimpernel. Maybe you've in your deep dive have like come across
I have come across this.
So when I was in elementary school, we studied, I don't know how, I don't think it's in the curriculum, but somebody taught us a Scarlet Pimpernel, which is, most people at like whenever I go to an event, I always say, if a Scarlet Pimpernel comes up, I always ask who has read it, and like maybe there's one person. So it's not a very well-known book, and it's also a play. They turned it into a play, and our class went to see the play in Stratford at the Stratford Festival. And ever since then, I've just been like I said, like kind of low-key obsessed with the story. So it's set during the French Revolution, and it's there's this character Marguerite, who is this French actress, I believe. I may be getting that wrong. I think she's a French actress, and she's married to this foppish aristocratic man, and so she's French and he's English, and she's so fed up with her foppish husband, and in the background there is this like mysterious person called the Scarlet Pimpernel who is rescuing aristocrats in France from the purge, from being executed, and like kind of bringing them back to England where they'll be safe. And in the course of the story, Marguerite gets kind of blackmailed by the man who is hunting for the Scarlet Pimpernel, and I won't spoil who it is, but basically I was like, there's a mystery, there's a romance, there's swashbuckling, there's like kind of like this masked vigilante. There's like all of these things that I just really stole my imagination, and I get every so often I just get this like itch to like reread the Scarlet Pimpernel, to watch the movie. There's a TV show, I usually watch that too. There's a soundtrack from the Broadway musical. There's just like all of this Scarlet Pimpernel like stuff that you can kind of consume. And I every few years, every probably 5 years, I kind of go through some version of this. And on my last binge, I got to the end and there was no more Scarlet Pimpernel stuff. And I'm like, I'm not done scratching the itch. And so I basically was like, okay, what if I scratched my own itch and I wrote a story that has all of these things, like has everything I love about the story. And like, what if instead of a Scarlet Pimpernel character, like what if I gender swapped the Scarlet Pimpernel and made him a teenage girl? And what if instead of aristocrats getting purged, it was witches who used to be in power? And like, I just kind of like went on and on and on with all these what ifs. And then I was kind of off to the races.
Wow. Now, after you like finished the binge, needed to scratch the itch, did you immediately go into the outlining the characters process, or what was the timeline?
Pretty much. Like I started with the characters. I started with the characters, but I also actually started with the world and the magic system. Like I knew I wanted a world where power had quickly like kind of turned over, and like the people who were in power were now at the bottom. Like, and I really wanted that to show up in the magic system. So I knew I wanted a magic user that in some way had the effects of their magic, like they had to wear them on their bodies. And so that's how I came up with the scars and like having to use the blood magic. And so I knew all of that straight up, and I knew I wanted like a Marguerite character from the Scarlet Pimpernel and a Scarlet Pimpernel character. And then like, but I kind of had to merge like the Marguerite and the Chauvelin who was hunting the Scarlet Pimpernel. I kind of like, so that I could turn it into like a hate to love romance. So it was there's a lot of character work at the beginning and a lot of magic system world building at the beginning.
When you're like drafting characters, like outline, are you like, is it in a Word document? Do you ever write anything by hand?
Sometimes, but I think because like my dad gave me that laptop at such a young age, and that's really how I started writing stories. That is sort of my first instinct, is always to type it. But I do like if I'm not with my laptop, which is a lot of the time, I will often use my notes app, or sometimes I will like draft in like a Gmail email draft, which is like, I don't know, that's like the not the smartest thing, but because it just can go like you can lose it so easily. But and then I used to carry a notebook and a pen everywhere I went, and I did a lot of handwritten notes, but that has really gone by the wayside since I've been so like, I have the phone on me now. I can like either talk into it or I can type it out. So most of my note taking happens on my phone and in my laptop.
What were some of the like early character traits or like plot points you knew you wanted to have in this story?
Well, I knew I needed Rune to get caught eventually. I knew part of the reason I wanted Gideon to come from a family of dressmakers was so that he had to measure her, take her measurements. So I knew I wanted that scene.
I absolutely love that scene. Oh my God.
And I think it like that sort of that meet cute moment where it's like they both decide like they're going to pretend to be courting each other in order to get something from the other. I kind of knew I wanted that scene in there too.
Now, you seem like you know a lot about your characters. Like you seem like a character-driven author. When you're reading other books, are you analyzing those characters, or can you read for fun in a way where you can shut off your brain?
It is very, very rare for me to come across a book that without my realizing it, I am just enjoying the story. And it's usually like halfway through where it's like, it's kind of like that dream state that I assume most readers get into. But for me, because it's like the way my brain works now, because it is my job, it's very hard to turn off. And so I'm often analyzing everything about a book. Yeah.
Do you like to read what you write? Like, are you often reading romantasy, or do you delve into other genres?
Mainly romantasy. And I've always been that way. Like when I was growing up, I loved fantasy, and I loved because YA was just kind of starting to be the thing that it is, a fraction of the thing that it is now when I was coming of age. And I just there was never enough romance for me. So yeah, so I've always loved fantasy, and mostly read fantasy, and as romantic as it could be, that's what I always kind of went for, and it's still my go-to thing.
Now, this is coming from your deep dive again. Okay. I recall you saying something of when you were a teen, the YA fantasy shelf was small. Like there was not a lot of selection. What does it mean, or what do you feel when you walk into a bookstore now and see the vast section of YA and romantasy we have, including your books?
It's it's very, when I think back, because it's for me, it's it was the St. Catherine's Chapters was my bookstore.
Okay. Yeah.
And I can still picture the YA fantasy shelf. It was just so small. And I think it's actually in the same area of the store as it is now, or close to that, and it's just exploded. It's totally different. It's a sea of books now, which is amazing. Yeah,
I love Indigo with my entire heart. I do love an old Chapters.
I
miss the smell of walking into those stores, and I think there are a select few still in Ontario.
Yeah, it's still technically a Chapters.
Really?
Yeah. It's not. Okay. It doesn't say Indigo on it. It
so
still
I'm
has
gonna be making
retro...
a trip out to St. Catherine's then, because all of mine in the area. And again, I love it, but I just love an original Chapters. There's just something about it.
And it's I used to go when I was in high school. I used to go with my best friend. There was a Starbucks right into it, and they just took out the Starbucks, and I was like, no, because it was so nostalgic.
Did they replace it with another coffee
No, right
shop?
now I'm not. I haven't been there in a couple months, maybe, but. As of the last time I went, there was nothing. I don't know what they're going to put there. I hope they put something good.
I need a beverage. That's basically my therapy these days.
Yeah.
Going back to Heartless Hunter and the crafting of writing in this book, what other external resources or books did you use when you were writing this book?
It was a lot of research on. So there was the Smithsonian put out. It's this big neon yellowy green fashion book, and it's fashion through the ages, and it's very visual, so you get pictures of all of the dresses, all of the suit jackets, all everything, and all of the little accessories, and it goes through each kind of period. So I did use that when I was, because I'm I don't know that much about fashion.
Me either.
And
yeah,
Rune very much is the opposite. She knows a lot about fashion, so I was okay, I gotta do some research here. So I used that book a lot. And for Rebel Witch, this is gonna maybe sound strange, but there's a steamship scene, a sequence. There's a chunk of the book happens on a steamship, and I'm I've never been on a steamship. So there's a Titanic video game. So the Titanic is a steamship, and this video game, I guess it's a YouTube thing. I'm not a gamer really, but doing walkthroughs on YouTube, you can find pretty much walkthroughs of any video game. And so I randomly came across this walkthrough at the end of the Titanic video game, and it's just the Titanic is totally empty. They're playing this sort of eerie music, but it's the game is modeled totally after the real Titanic. So all of the levels, all of the rooms would be what they would have been on the Titanic. And so I just watched that walkthrough over and over and over again to get a sense of basically just what it would feel like to be in a steamship at that kind of time. And so I used that for sure when I was writing the steamship scenes.
YouTube has everything.
I know, it's true.
YouTube
the internet has everything.
So, you're right. Yeah. I know. Now, when you were writing this book, I think you also had a crafting a romance story or something. But when you were writing this book, how did you turn off, if there was a voice in your brain saying this is too cliche, this is too tropey, how do you stay true to writing what you want to write as an author?
Yeah, that is an excellent question. So for this duology, for Heartless Hunter in particular, I had written 4 books before that, and I could see, and this is a common thing. So my first book did really well. The Last Name Sarah, the Dragon Slayer one, and then every book after that did a little bit less well. And so I was watching as these books came out, because I had that first book to compare to. I was watching my sales dwindle, and I was oh, this isn't basically when I got my book deal for Heartless Hunter, my sales numbers hadn't come in yet for Edgewood for like the fourth book, and then when they did come in, I had already sold the book and it wasn't great, and I was like, okay, so this is my last chance. Like they're never going to give me another book deal after this, so I am going to make this book what I want to make it. Like I don't care what anyone thinks. And I mean, I had just had a baby too, so it was like my brain chemistry was like I was in survival mode, and like when you have a baby, like your brain like literally shuts down parts of itself in order to prioritize the essential parts. And it kind of felt like that's what I was doing. It was like, I do not care what any of these people think. Like even my agent, even my editor, and I love my agent, I love my editor. It's like, I don't care. I'm going to write what I want to write. And basically like screw it. If like everyone hates it. And so basically I could put everything I loved into that story, and that's what I did. And I didn't care if it was cheesy, and I didn't care if I thought people were going to judge me for it. I just put them in. And so, yeah.
Your editor was Vicky Lame.
Yes.
Yeah. She believed in this story, though. She liked Heartless Hunter.
She did, yes.
What did it feel like to like, you were putting all of your passions in this book and you had an editor who was like, yeah, this is going to be something?
I don't know. Like, I would say, like, I don't think... So I love Vicky, and Vicky has excellent taste. I mean, maybe I'm biased there, but I think she does. Like, she has put so many, like, she has selected so many books that ended up on the New York Times bestseller list. And I think she has good takes. She has good instincts. But I think Vicky, not even Vicky knew that this book was going to blow up the way that it did. And yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know how to answer that question, I guess, because it feels like everyone was kind of blown away, including myself. Like I didn't really know what was happening. Like when that first day it came out and it was that morning, it was sold out on Amazon. It was like, what? Like it didn't compute. And the fact that like it sold out in the first week means that my publisher did not order enough copies, which means they did not think it would sell that many copies. And so it's just like, it just felt like it was out of our hands. Like nobody had expected, it to hit the way it hit. Yeah.
Can you take me back to like that first week? What do you think? I mean, listen, I've read the book. I absolutely love this book and I know why it did well. Where did it come from that first day? Like, how did it sell out within the first week? Was it on BookTok? Was it like, where did it come from?
I think it was. So like, I kind of had a sense, and like, you just never know. You never know how a book is going to perform. All of the stars can line up, and then something can happen like the day before, like, I don't know, like the apocalypse happens, and then all of a sudden it doesn't matter that all the stars lined up. Yeah. Like nobody's going to buy that book. So like not that drastic, hopefully, but that it does happen where it's like, you just cannot predict, and you cannot predict how a book is going to do. And, but there were signs. So like at Frankfurt Book Festival, I think we came out of that festival with like, this was like a year or more before the book was coming out. I think it was a year and a half before the book was even coming out. Mm-hmm. And just like word of mouth, like scouts were like on it. And like it had come out of that festival with so many different translation rights sold. And then we had all of these different book boxes that wanted it. And this was like a year and a half. And so it felt like there was something there, because it wasn't a big splashy deal that was making people sit up and pay attention to this book. It was just quietly like spreading. And so I do think it was like, there was something about the story itself that was just landing with people at that time. Yeah.
I mean, a witch and a witch hunter.
Yeah, well, I mean...
that honestly, those words would convince me to read it. But it's just, I mean, I read a lot of witch romances, and this one absolutely stands out amongst them. What is the difference between Heartless Hunter and Crimson Moth?
Yeah, good question. Probably my most asked question, other than how do you pronounce your last name?
Yeah.
So if you are on the TikTok or the Instagram or anywhere, you'll notice that it has two titles, Heartless Hunter and Crimson Moth. Heartless Hunter is the North American title, and then Crimson Moth is the UK title, and there's different foreign markets have different ones as well, but so those are the two English titles that get confusing. So when I was writing the book, I originally titled it the Crimson Moth, and that was kind of a nod to the Scarlet Pimpernel, but it was also obviously Rune's her like signature that she leaves behind whenever she casts a spell. So that was why I called it Crimson Moth. And then my US publisher, so Vicky, came to me and she was like, like we really are finding that names that are more on the nose are working better. So we want to change it to Heartless Hunter. And I was like, okay, that's fine with me. I trust you. And so they changed it to Heartless Hunter. And then when we took that to my UK publisher, they were like, no, we're not changing it. and so now everyone is confused because it has 2 titles. So
interesting. Yeah. Now, do you have like when you're talking about the book, what do you say?
I call it Heartless Hunter.
You say Heartless Hunter.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I do say Heartless Hunter, but if I am in the UK, or I'm talking to a UK audience or an Australian, New Zealand audience, then I'll try and use Crimson Moth, or I'll use both.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there's no textual differences in the story, is there?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I love this book so much that I read it as Heartless Hunter, and then I went to the UK and I bought Crimson Moth.
Amazing.
Just literally to have it on my shelf, to have both copies of it.
Lovely.
We read it in the book club as well. Like it's an incredible read. I'm going to go back a little bit to the outlining process because I'm curious on what is an Alpha Neo Smart? And what did you like, how did you use that to write this book?
Yeah. Okay. So an Alpha Neo Smart is like it's this like, it almost looks like I don't know, a moon. It's not like a crescent moon. It's more like when it's like halfway. I forget what that one's. When it's like halfway full.
No,
whatever you want to call that.
No idea.
There's probably a better way to describe this, but it's like gray and it's like kind of clunky. It looks like a keyboard, and there's like a little tiny little screen, and it's like a calculator screen. Okay. So it's like when I say screen, it's not anything fancy. And you can see as you type, you can see I think 2 or 3 lines of typing as you go, and no more than that. And then you have to attach it, literally attach it through a cable to your computer. So basically it's a word processor that they used to teach writing to kids and adults on back in like the 90s. And so you type your scene, la 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 la, you're typing, and then you get to the end, and then you attach it to the computer, and then you press send, and then in whatever program you use, I use Word Doc, you watch it and it just like starts writing whatever you wrote all out until it ends. And then that's basically how I wrote Heartless Hunter. And then I would save that and I'd add it to my the bigger document but basically it like cut out all distractions and allowed me to just focus better.
So that's what I was going to ask you. Was it because it was like not connected to the internet, no distractions, or because you could only like, could you go back and edit? No.
I mean, you could try, but it was very annoying, painfully annoying. And so that is a huge draw, is like for people like me who just want to fiddle and like fix and like never move on because this part is never good enough. It's very helpful for that. It forces you to just go.
Now, did you use it for Rebel Witch or any other books since then, or is it just Heartless Hunter?
It was mainly Heartless Hunter. I did use it for some of Rebel Witch, but I found I didn't necessarily need the focus, or like I didn't need it the way I needed it for Heartless Hunter. And that could be because I had a baby and I was just having trouble focusing with Heartless Hunter. But the book I'm working on now, I haven't used it at all, actually. I have it there in case I do need it. But yeah.
Fascinating. Now, can you tell me a little bit about like the conversation, I think before Heartless Hunter was coming out, was like ideas of maybe a special edition, and that didn't end up going to publishing, but this year we are getting a collector's edition of it.
Yeah. So this was part of the like, we don't think this book is going to do well. So originally Heartless Hunter was supposed to have all these like fancy things, like fancy end pages, and then like a foil stamp under the cover. And then they decided to take all of that away because again, they didn't think it was going to earn out. They didn't think it was going to be worth it, like to put all of that in. They weren't going to get their return on their investment. And so if you look, there's nothing under the cover, there's no end pages. So now they are doing a big fancy collector's edition that comes out this fall.
Did you have a vision for what you wanted it to look like, or did you can you tell me about it?
Yes. I feel bad because they sent me what they want, what they thought it should be. And I was like, no. I was like, and I'm not like, I'm usually like a super easygoing person, especially with my publishing team. It's like, I trust you. But with this, I really dug my feet in and I was like, no, we're not going with that. We're doing something else. And I really wanted the artist, I'm pointing over here, but it's not over here. The artist that we went with, like, I just really love his work. And I feel like he's starting to appear on covers.
Oh, great.
I'm forgetting there's like a more recent bestselling romantasy, YA romantasy, but I'm forgetting the name of it, that he did the UK version of. He's done a special edition of Pride and Prejudice and Jane Eyre. And like, that's where I first was like, oh my gosh, I really want this guy to do my cover. His name is Abel Clare. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that properly, but he's just like very sort of, I don't know, like nothing I've ever seen before. It's not digital. There might be parts of it that he does digitally, but it's very like tactile and like gold foil and like almost like old world folk like monsters and figures like queens, and it's just very, I don't know, he just totally captured me and I wanted him to do the covers. So.
And that is coming out this year?
Yeah, the first one comes out this year, and then surprise, it's not announced, but there will be a second collector's edition for Rebel
amazing.
Witch. Yeah.
Now, when when Heartless Hunter blew up that first week, where were you at in the process of Rebel Witch? And did the success like add more pressure into writing the sequel, or were you like, no, I'm good, I got this?
Yeah, I am incredibly lucky that I had already finished Rebel Witch by the time Heartless Hunter came out. Yeah, because that would have been very difficult to do. So I'm so thankful that I passed Kristen for getting that in so early because I didn't have it was the same sort of vibe. It was like, I don't care what these people think. I'm just writing what I want to write. And it's like, la, 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 oblivious. And so that was really nice.
Oh my God. And I'll tell I forget what publisher I reached out to, but I was begging on my hands and knees for an arc of Rebel Witch. And they did send one to me.
Oh, good.
And they were like, don't talk about it. Don't. They were like, I don't even think I posted about it.
Oh, really?
But I just remember just like absolutely being obsessed with this story. I meant to ask you this earlier when we were talking about Heartless Hunter. What does the dedication for the book mean to you as the author?
Yeah. For those afraid to be who they are.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. That is like basically Rune's whole thing, right? Like she cannot be who she is because if she were to like fully reveal herself, they would kill her. Like her existence is basically illegal. And the reason for that is like when I was first thinking about Rune and wanting a character like Rune, I feel Rune is nothing at all like me. She's probably the character I've written that the protagonist I've written that is the least like me. But I did give her this thing of mine, which was like this fear of like being myself, like and I had just been seeing it like not just in myself, like this sort of like not wanting to say things or like just like kind of hiding who I really was and like the things I really thought because I was just afraid of rejection basically. And I mean, that's a very human thing. It's like evolutionary, like we don't want to be rejected by our group. But I was just seeing it a lot, not just in myself, but in people around me and in people I loved. And I was like, what is this? And I really wanted to explore that. And so that's kind of where that came from. That dedication, but also Rune.
Now, is this it for the Crimson Moth Heartless Hunter world? Can we expect anything else?
Okay. So I keep getting muzzled. I'm not allowed to talk about it, but there is something coming. And if you like the Crimson Moth and if you enjoy Rune and Gideon, you will probably be excited about this thing that is coming.
Okay, you know what? We'll take it. Well, at least there's something. Amazing. Now, what can you tell us about what you're writing next?
Yeah. So that thing.
or your next release. What do you so, whatever you can share.
Yeah, okay. What can I share? So that thing that is the thing that I'm working on, but there's also another thing coming down the pipes and it had to get pushed a bit because of this thing. And that is it's another romantasy. It's more adult, more firmly adult. This is kind of like, this is more crossover. But it's a romantasy, and it's about a vampire princess who gets entangled in a forbidden romance with her werewolf bodyguard. And so that is also super, super fun to write. Yeah.
What made you want to explore vampires and werewolves?
I mean, they're such a staple in fantasy. But I think it was like it was more like I wanted to write a bodyguard romance. Like, and they're really hard to write, and I was like really intimidated, but I had this shape of the story, and it had kind of been like simmering in the back of my mind for a really long time. And I just like, it was never the right time. There was something always missing. And then a friend of mine, she had just finished Rebel Witch, I think, and she was like, you know what you should do? You should write a vampire book. Are you ever going to write a vampire book? And then I was like, that I think is the missing piece of this story that I've been trying to like make work. And so it was like her question. And I don't know why I have always kind of avoided vampires and werewolves. And I was just like, what if I made it a vampire werewolf forbidden romance, bodyguard romance thing? And so that it's all her, basically. She was the spark. Yeah.
Well, I'm so excited for that. That comes out next year, I believe.
It comes out, it's possibly, but it might be early the following year.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. I have some patience in me. Last question for you. You just got back from your Europe tour. You got collector's edition coming out this year. We have another book next year, maybe the following year. What does the rest of your year look like? What are you working on?
Yeah. So the book that comes out next year, I'm handing that in on Monday.
Okay.
And then I'm back to work on another book. And that's I have a tour coming up in Brazil, but that's pretty much it for like my tour for this year. But there is kind of a fun thing going on in Niagara for the locals. It's like One Book, One Niagara. A Dark Forgetting was chosen this year.
Epic.
And so it's like all of Niagara's like reading A Dark Forgetting, and we're doing like events and stuff. So I'm really looking forward to that. That'll be fun.
And when is that?
It's the kickoff is June, and then the conclusion, there's like a big event, I think in October.
Epic.
So yeah.
Okay, amazing.
That'll be very fun.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.
This is lovely.
And thank you all for listening to Off the Shelf, and we will see you next Thursday.